Hi class, in this video we're going to do the calculations using Excel. So I already have the file in actual Canvas, so please download and save. Once you have the data set, this is how it's going to look like. And let me display again the actual problem. Okay, so you're given a probability distribution, and the first question that they're asking is the table defined as a probability distribution? For a probability distribution, we have to check two conditions, and the conditions are here. So the sum of the probabilities is equal to 1, and every value from the probabilities happens to be between 0 to 1. Now, if it's a very large probability distribution, what we could do is just use Excel and add it. So to do the sum, you could just hit equals SUM, put the actual parentheses, and then highlight your actual cells. And here you see that the sum of the actual column is equal to 1. So what I'm going to answer here is that yes, both of these conditions are satisfied. The second condition, every single value from the column has to be between 0 to 1. So in this case, let me just say that yes, the table is defined as a probability distribution and then let me just mention the actual conditions since we have both of those conditions satisfied. So that's actually it for the first question. On any table that you're given that happens to be a probability distribution, the sum of the column has to equal to 1 or a value very close to 1. And also you're not allowed to have any values greater than 1 or less than 0. So that's actually it for the actual first question. The second question is actually asking for the mean, standard deviation, and variance for the data set. So what we're going to do here is we're going to run those calculations using Excel. Now, when you open the file, this is how it should open. And we need to create basically two columns. Since the formulas for the mean, it's going to be the sum of xp of x and the standard deviation. Let me double check if it wants. Yeah, it wants all of them. So the variance is going to be the sum of x squared p of x minus mu squared. And then the square root of that, it's going to be, well, the standard deviation. So the easiest to do here on the Excel file is start with a column of xp of x. So you're going to hit equals, and we want your x's multiplied times the probabilities. And at this point, verify that you are getting the correct cells. Once you check that it's the correct cell, you may just drag it. So let me just put it on the center. And the sum of this column represents the mean. So let me just enter this here, and just so that we have it as reference, this is the value of the mean. Okay, in order to get the variance and the standard deviation, we technically need another column, but this column has to have x squared and p of x. So in Excel, I'm just going to hit equals, and these are your x's, but we need to square those x's and multiply times the probabilities. And then double check by double clicking to make sure that those two cells are being selected. At this point, drag the column and you would see that the calculation carries over. Now we need this sum, so SUM and then the sum of these values. Let me do the calculations for the actual variance. So at this point, it's just going to be equals to the sum of x squared p of x minus the value of the mean, and we need to square this value. So notice that I'm just selecting on the cells. This is so that it automatically does the calculation. Let me check. And we're looking at 0.5262 with a little bit of, there's more decimals. That would be the variance. Let me double check. That is x squared p of x minus the mu squared. Now, the last calculation that we need to do in Excel is the square root of the previous answer. To activate that command, you're going to hit equals and then SQ, and you'll see the square root. That is our answer. Okay, let me copy and paste these into the actual file, but this is what we obtained. I'll do manually these again on the Word file in a little bit. But when you're checking all of these, you just have to double check that once you activate one command, that it actually saves it. So in this case, everything looks good. Let me just copy. Actually, let me copy the whole thing and put it on the Word document. Okay, on your end, all I need you to do is basically fill in those cells. That would be sufficient. Now, in any of the calculations, I still want to see the work that was done. So let me pause the video so we can do these manually, because on your end, you may just have the columns and then you still have to do the calculations to verify that there's no error. So let me pause the video for like a minute and then we'll continue on part B. For doing part B, I still want you to write the formulas. So for example, the value of the mean, it's basically the actual sum of xp of x. So in this case, it's this value here. So you might already have it from Excel, but as you're writing and formalizing your answer, I still need you to write it in that form. So in this case, the value of mu was actually given as 0.599. Okay, now let's say that we hadn't done this automatic with the software. You can still check it, and the calculation for the variance is going to be as follows. We're going to be using this value minus the result from the mean, and then we're going to square it. So 0.885. So in this case, and I want to see formulas and variables, so it'll be 0.855 minus the 0.599, and then we need this squared. So please evaluate. So 0.855 minus 0.599, and it's 5, yep, squared. The answer for this one it's gonna be approximately, I'm getting 0.526. I'm just gonna round to 3 decimal places. And then this should match with what we obtain technically using Excel, except that notice that on Excel, well, it doesn't show you the calculations that we did unless you're on the actual file and double click on it. Now, the last portion would be to your previous answer, you're just going to take the square root. So in this case, this is going to be the square root of 0.526. And then I'm just going to use more values, the ones that are displaying on the calculator. So 199. This is so that we match. You could just do square root it from the previous answer. And in this case, I'm getting 0.725. 5 would be fine at 3 decimal places. And let me just double check that we're matching 0.725. Yep, that is the answer that we obtained with the software. In any case, as you're formalizing your answers, we need to actually view them in this format, meaning for all answers, you're providing the variable formula and the calculation. That's actually it for this portion B. The last question that they're asking is the usual interval. And when we're talking about probability distributions, your usual interval is always going to be the mean plus or minus 2 standard deviations away from it. So in this case, we're going to be running the following calculation, which it's already given here with the interval. In this case, it'll be mu plus or minus 2 sigma, or the values of mu of 0.599 plus or minus 2 times the 0.72 5, and this is going to be 0.599 plus 2 times 0.725. Okay, so I'm getting, in this calculation, I'll check it in a little bit, that this is, in terms of a lower bound, 0.851, and then technically 2.049, which we need to round because the variable represents, technically they represent babies with green eyes. So in this case, the minimum amount of babies that you can have is 0, and technically 2. In our final answer, I'm just going to rewrite it as the usual interval. Using mu plus or minus 2 sigma is technically 0 to 2, and it's babies with green eyes. That's actually it for this problem. I just wanted to do one where we're using Excel. That's actually it. Don't forget that all of your sentences have to include which formula you use. In this case, mu plus or minus 2 sigma, the interval, and then the unit. As you're doing the calculation, since this one provided, actually there was supposed to be a negative there. Well, we couldn't have a negative value, so minimum would be 0. That's actually it for this video.